If that works for everyone, great. Okay, well, hello and welcome. My name is Rachel Orlansky. I am the VP of Student Affairs at UAGC, and I will be the host of this session, Authentic Assessment as Belonging. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we've enabled live transcription. If you'd like to use it, just click the live transcription button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I am pleased to introduce you to Dr. Richard Freese, Instructional Designer at the University of Wisconsin. Rich, take it away.
Thank you so much, Rachel. So yeah, we're going to be talking, obviously you can see from my title slide, about assessment. And by assessment, I just think about, allowing students to demonstrate what they've learned, give them an opportunity to earn credentials. And also by belonging, just, making students feel like they belong here, like that they can thrive, and that whatever material we're looking at a course is for them. I am going to start everybody with some thinking time, just a little bit I'd like you to go back and I'd like you to think back to a particularly memorable assignment that you completed at some point during any part of your education. Ideally, I'd like it to be an assignment that you have some sort of happy memories about, something that you thought the assignment was good, worthwhile. Maybe not necessarily because you still don't like it. But I'd like you to think about that and indicate what made it worthwhile. So I am going to give everybody just a little bit of things to do. So I'm going to play some background music, and I, for myself, am going to set a 3-minute timer. And so during those 3 minutes, please just kind of think through again about a good assignment that you still remember from back in the day and what made it good. And I would love you to please just kind of type in the chat. I'll get some background music going. We've got 3 minutes. What I'm seeing so far in the chat. This is wonderful. Who's just joining us, I'm just going to put the prompt in the chat again as to what we're currently working on. I love what I'm seeing. While I'm presenting, if anything in the chat is sparking any ideas, and if that leads to any side conversation, please know that is absolutely acceptable. We're all here learning from everybody today. We will come back to these ideas about memorable assignments. So first, I want to talk a little bit about traditional assignments. So I have a picture of what might perhaps be a traditional college classroom. We have a bunch of seats. They don't look particularly comfortable. It's a space designed to fit a lot of people. They all have a single focal point. Um, when I think about traditional assignments, things that come to mind are items like final exams, maybe a big major paper in the online course, the online discussion. Could be perhaps a traditional assignment. Maybe just things that come to mind as perhaps normal or how your teacher might have done it back in the day. Um, these aren't time tested, and all of these things certainly have a purpose. As we think about assignments, I would just think and just kind of give us something to think about. An assignment for the sake of being assignment, which sometimes those traditional assessments can fall into, um, the brain doesn't really prioritize that knowledge. The brain can kind of find a way to fake its way through it and then disregard everything that it just did. And there's also the reality that students have varied backgrounds, needs, interests, etc., where those traditional things may not really resonate. So I'm talking about authentic assessments today. So here we have a group of individuals, they're collaborating, perhaps in some sort of office environment. And just to provide a quote about authentic assessment to help define it, this is from Indiana University Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning. An authentic assignment is one that requires application of what students have learned to a new situation and that demands judgment to determine what information and skills are relevant and how they should be used. Authentic assignments are often focus on messy, complex real-world situations and their accompanying constraints. They can involve a real-world audience of stakeholders and clients as well. That last thing about kind of real-world application seems to connect with a lot of what I saw in the chat. Just to provide some examples of what authentic assessments could look like. Again, this is from Indiana University. So for a nursing student, perhaps an example of an authentic assignment is providing a case study of a patient and asking students to assess and create a plan of care. Perhaps for a computer science student, an authentic assessment is developing a website or app that's solving a particular problem. Perhaps for history, authentic assignment, I think I saw a little bit of this too, is engaging in role play. Just maybe acting something out, describe what might have happened if one element or historical event had changed. So those are just some examples of what authentic assessment can look like. And when I think about authentic assessment, I think about a lot about valuing inquiry. So here we have some a picture of two kids who are looking into a telescope, looking into a sky, and there's that sense of exploration with that. With valuing entry, I think a lot about with authentic assessment, intrinsic motivation. What is the student in particular maybe really inspired? I think about self-directed learning, doing an assessment not just because the teachers are like, okay, like here's like the topic that you need to write about and write about it, but making it personable. Um, I very much think about that valuing inquiry and just with authentic assessment support them in making their own connections and validating them. Regardless of what kind of assessment you're doing, maybe you're creating a space where you can say, how does what we've learned about connect to your past experiences, your past interest, media you've consumed, perhaps your future goals? And again, their interests matter. How can you create a space where they are working on something that they are very much inspired to do? Leading up to this, I was reading Fink's creating significant learning experiences. Just a couple of points of that resonated with me. Giving students an opportunity to make connections between what they're learning and what's going on in their own life. Perhaps in a history class, they're interviewing older family members. Perhaps they're having a chance to shadow professionals. I think I saw some of that in the chat. Perhaps there's service learning or journaling going on. Also, with forward-looking assessments, imagine yourself in a situation where people are using this knowledge. Perhaps if you're, leading, training people who are going to be working in your field, kind of helping those students kind of picture themselves in those roles. Again, authentic assessment can look like a lot of things. It doesn't have to look like collaboration, but it sure can. And as much as possible, when we can value collaboration, that makes a big difference. You know, Having opportunities where students are able to share ideas with each other. Um, Maybe they're having a chance to share ideas with the class at large. Perhaps what they're doing is actually something where they can go into their community and have an impact. Are there any ways with assessment where there can be some sort of project-based learning where they're doing a project within their community where they get to help guide what that might look like, perhaps even interact with the community to get their feedback of what could be of value to what they're doing. Um, Another source I was reading, and I have a slide of my references at the end. Barrel's article, Assessment for Culturally Inclusive Collaborative Inquiry-Based Learning. This is from the Handbook of Distance Education. We can maybe think about collaborative inquiry-based learning. So again, collaborative, something that's being done as a group. Something that can be useful because it allows diverse learners to combine their unique perspectives, knowledge, and expertise to solve complex problems. Assessment flexibility can be used for collaborative inquiry based learning. And assessment flexibility can look like a lot of things. Um, Again, I mentioned we talked about those traditional assessments. The written paper is such a common thing. And, I'm by no means am I saying that we should throw away the written paper. But what if we give students an option where they might be able to write a written paper, or, I want to make a video essay, or I want to create this art project that's conveying what I've learned, and I'll talk about how I've learned. A big thing is giving clear yet flexible performance expectations, developing some sort of criteria so that we're meeting some sort of standards, but maybe those standards can look a little different from situation to situation. Um, a big thing is you can also do with this about valuing collaboration is give learners a voice in establishing performance and assessment criteria. Perhaps as you're talking about this assessment earlier in your term, the students perhaps have an input as to what is really most important about what's being created. Something I like to think about is authentic traditional assessment. So I have a picture of it appears to be a worker of some kind, and this person needs to be doing some sort of work up this tower, up this scaffolding. And the big thing that I take away is this worker isn't responsible for whatever they're climbing to work on. It's not up to that worker to just get up all into the sky all by themselves. There is a support system that is allowing them to reach new heights. And I think we can think about that sort of scaffolding or support, even in traditional assessments, that is really going to help people feel like they belong and that is going to make it more worthwhile. Perhaps as you're working through an assessment, and even if we were looking at, let's say, the traditional assessment, like a major paper or major exam, I think it's okay for us as instructors to say, this is where I've struggled when I've learned this. This is where I've seen other people struggle. I think to emphasize that we are all human, that lots of people with these concepts we're talking about, it may not click right away, and that's okay. Everybody belongs in this learning space, even if it isn't coming easily. Um, Going back to the paper, Again, maybe your students want to pursue graduate studies. And as part of their graduate studies, as to apply for that, they might need to create a writing sample. And I think just communicating to students, like as you write this final paper, this is important because this is the potential learning artifact that you can reuse for that next goal that you have. And I think a lot about exams too, even high stakes exams, which I will readily admit I'm not the biggest fan of in the world. At the same point, there are fields of study, or careers, I should say, career paths, where students will need to gain some sort of licensure or some sort of credential to be allowed to work in that field. In that case, that high stakes exam is an authentic assessment because it's a chance for your students to practice in the safety of your classroom before they have to go off and doing it in the real world. Um, and any sort of, again, scaffolding we can do, again, going back to the paper. Um, when I was in college, I had a lot of papers where it's like, okay, this is due like 3 months from now. And then 2 months and 29 days later, I would like do an all-nighter and just churn something out. But if we can scaffold, and then, like again, like I have no memory about what I did for a lot of those. But if we can scaffold it where it's like introducing a topic and then, give a topic proposal, annotated bibliography, outlines, rough drafts, all those steps of the way, it makes it a lot less scary. And in the world of generative artificial intelligence, I also think a lot less tempting than to just do the final paper. So this is my story about a memorable assignment. I was in advanced high school chemistry, and we needed to write some kind of paper. And we were given a bunch of topics, and one of them that kind of resonated with me was talking about the science behind potential science fiction. So I turned my high school chemistry paper into an essay about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. For anyone who's unfamiliar with the Ninja Turtles, we have four normal turtles. They come in contact with ooze. They then became crime-fighting Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was very light on the science. I included hand-drawn pictures of the Ninja Turtles in my essay. Now, I didn't get full credit, I will readily admit, but I did decently well. And I think about that sort of assignment of what I learned. I learned a lot about formatting. This was using a 2002 word processing device, learning how to format. So again, I could have room for my hand-drawn pictures. I learned about citations as I learned how to cite in APA format, an old VHS videotape of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I did a lot of kind of comparative analysis and text criticism as I compared the 1987 Ninja Turtles cartoon to the 1990 motion picture, and then learned about in the process the original 1984 comics. Um, it was a lot of practice in providing unique perspectives. Now, I don't use a whole lot of high school chemistry today. However, like the electrons go in their little rings and covalent bonds, that's not really something I think about in my day-to-day life. But formatting, citing all kinds of different sources, comparative analysis, sharing unique perspectives, that is something I have used throughout my entire academic and professional career. So that's my example about how I've used that. We are approaching Q&A time, and I want to think back to that memorable assignments that we talked about. And during the last few minutes that we have together, if there's anything that I've talked about that's resonating with you, that you want to ask about or have ideas or questions, that's great. If you just kind of want to go through the memorable assessments that we've been talking about in the chat or that I had to share to, talk with you, if there's any common threads you're noticing, any trends, emerging ideas that perhaps we can all think about as we look about creating really quality assessments that help our students feel like they belong. I'm very, very open. So I've been doing a lot of talking. For anyone who would like to ask a question, by all means, I am very, very receptive, and I will stop talking so that I can create space for anybody to share ideas or questions.
Oh, hey, it's me, Yvonne.
Hi, Yvonne.
I just wanted to say that I loved your example of the Ninja Turtles for students. Students love pop culture, and so I think when you make an assignment with pop culture, that makes it resonate with students because it's something that they're familiar with, and it also shows that you have a sense of humor, at least for the teacher, if you're able to give some pop culture, topics and stuff like that. And also I love the Ninja Turtles as well, the cartoon. So I guess that dates me, but dates anybody. So I wish I could have seen the beginning of your presentation, but I was at Hazar's English writing, and you guys overlapped. So, you know,
No, I understand. Thanks for making what you were able to
and I
catch,
was,
and I believe the session is being recorded.
oh, I'm gonna definitely watch the first part, and I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you, thank you. Christina has an outstanding question about, do you have a best method for creating a rubric that would be clear but flexible with the variety of assessments? So something I've done in one of my courses, um, so I gave students the option of they could write like a regular paper or they could create something else. Um, and I think, a lot of it is determining what is most important. And for me, what was most important is that they're conveying some sort of information about what they've learned. And for me, if they've done that, if what they've created isn't necessarily the most polished thing in the world, I was okay with that. And as far as the other comments, like, again, maybe you want to have your students make a project or a video essay, record themselves doing it, or, art or whatever. Perhaps it's just something in there with the rubric that demonstrates that whatever they're creating, and I apologize that this is a very subjective thing, what I'm about to say, but that there's some sort of level of proficiency that they've demonstrated. And perhaps, again, I love scaffolding and I love breaking major assessments into smaller chunks. So perhaps early on in the term, they're doing some sort of proposal where like, I'm going to make a video about this topic. It's like, okay, week one, that's their proposal. And perhaps in week 2 or 3, as part of that, they have to um, share like a model that they found that they could perhaps replicate. And there was also tons of reflection, like what did you learn from this? What sort of things did you see that you might try to emulate in your own work? And maybe even just ask them like, how proficient are you with that? And again, this will be subjective, but give them the freedom to, or the opportunity to mess up and fall on their face. Like maybe it doesn't look like a professional YouTuber's video essay. That's okay because that professional YouTuber didn't start. Their first project wasn't whatever they've recently been able to monetize. So those would be my first thoughts. Great question. Rachel, I see we have a form. But should I give you a space to talk about that?
Sure. So, first of all, thank you so much, Rich. That was phenomenal. I learned so much, both I think about our students that we're working with today and our kiddos, right? I mean, I have a fifth grader who I was thinking about the whole time you were presenting, who's having trouble with that traditional assessment, right? And making meaning of that. So thank you so much. And thank you to the audience for your participation in the chat and the questions. The survey link is in the chat to nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and share your feedback on your conference experience. I would love for folks to give their feedback on this particular session, given that it was really awesome. And those conference awards are actually happening later today at 2 p.m. Pacific. Encourage you to attend both that session and the reflections on the TLC learning outcomes, which is happening the hour before. So thank you so much again, Rich, and enjoy the rest of TLC, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Something that I'm doing that maybe anyone else wants to do, I'm just doing a quick copy paste of everyone's great memorable assessments that they've shared in the chat. I think there's some great things we can draw from that.
Love it. Thanks again, Rich.